Okay, welcome to Fresh Set of Downs, presented by EasternPAFootball.com. My name is Bruce Badgley. Alongside me, as usual, Mr. EasternPAFootball.com, Dave Mika. Dave, we've got a very special guest with us to start the
There we
show this
go.
week.
Yeah, we have Freedom's head coach, Jason Roeder. Jason, welcome. Um, you guys are 4-0. You started the season playing the team from California, Torrey Pines, winning that game 17-14. And, going into the season, everyone was talking Freedom, Parkland, Nazareth. Well, you happened to play Parkland and Nazareth uh, early this season, and you come out with a win on both programs. So you're 4-0. Let's talk a little bit about those matchups. What I'm looking at is each game, it was close up to halftime. Looks like you might have made some good adjustments and you guys pulled away. Talk about those wins. We'll talk about Parkland first.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned game one. It seems like it was 5 years ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We knew coming into the year, looking at our schedule, that coming out of the gate, we had some serious challenges in front of us. And, obviously the game in California was something different. And, to come out on top of that was huge. And to play well against a team and a program like Parkland, who's, really put it to us the last couple times was a real confidence booster for our kids and our program. But we understand this is a long haul. Um, so yeah, week two wins against a team like that are great, but it was back to work right away, and just try to keep getting better.
Yeah, and week three you beat Allentown Central Catholic, and then last week, playing at Nazareth, a game that was tied 10-10, and you shut them out in the second half. You scored 28 points. What was your thoughts on that game? What was the, you know, turning point in the second half?
I think my thoughts were that I was pleased with the way we handled adversity. You mentioned those three conference games, two of them which we chose to play. We chose to play Park
Hmm.
this year and Allentown Central Catholic, and those two and along with Nazareth are three teams that beat us last year. And we lost some close games last year, two overtime games. There's such a fine line of winning in our league, so for us to handle adversity and things didn't quite go the way we wanted to in the first half, and we lost our emotions on a couple plays. So to be able to regroup, I think it showed the maturity of our team to just
Hmm.
come out and play our game and execute and handle the ups and downs of a big emotional football game. To see our kids handle that, I think was really big for us.
You've been a
Bruce.
coach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go
You've
ahead,
been the
Bruce.
coach for some time here. Um, uh, and so each particular team has its own chemistry. And you know, talk a little bit about, the chemistry of this team. And, you know, is it where you think you have the chemistry, dialed in right? Because it's not only obviously coaching staff and players, but players within players too. So talk a little bit about the chemistry of your team right now. And is it something that you think you've really got dialed in?
It's funny you bring that up. We always start our season with kind of points of emphasis for each year, and to the outside world, they may sound generic, but we try to think of and focus on specific things that we feel this team needs. And one of the things we did talk about this year was that word, that chemistry, and I think that all starts with senior leadership. We got a lot of really good football players, and there's one football, so it starts right there. um, in terms of putting the team first and understanding what has to happen. But I use that word maturity. I think we have a really, really strong senior class that are team first guys, and they understand everybody wants to have great individual efforts, but understanding that team wins come first, and doing their best to get there, and the individual stuff will come with it. So the chemistry's been outstanding, but once again, that doesn't get tested. Chemistry is all great when you're winning. it doesn't get tested until you hit some adversity. And you mentioned the Nazareth game. It was the first time we were behind in a football game all year, and things didn't go quite, um, exactly as we had planned in that first half. So I think that was a test,
Mhm.
of that chemistry, and I think we passed the first one, with flying colors. But there'll be more tests, there'll be more adversity in the future, and I think our kids understand that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and talk about your quarterback, Chase Walker, over 800 yards passing, 9 touchdowns. He's really spreading the ball around. You have three receivers that have 10 catches or more. How important is that? Because a team can't just defend one or two players. You have so many weapons.
No, we do, we feel we have maybe three, four, maybe even five guys that could be number one receivers. Your quote number one receivers in the league, but it's a matter of Chase doing his job. It's not a matter of who we throw the ball to. He goes through his reads, and there are some ways that we can specifically target some guys to get them the ball. But he's doing his job, and he's even keeled. He's a smart kid. And our offensive coaches are doing a good job putting those guys in positions where they can show their abilities and talents and make plays.
Mhm.
And
Go
talk a
ahead,
little
Bruce.
bit about too. I mean, he said obviously you've got a pretty mature team out there right now, but most coaches really have a strategy on keeping on reloading. Okay, like how are you going to in a senior laden team? How do you get like some of your younger players some meaningful minutes so that the cupboard isn't bare once these seniors move on to the next level or the next level in life?
No, I mean that's the idea of trying to build a program. I think that we've had a good run of success here where we have been able to use that word reload and not quite rebuild. And it's about developing players in the offseason, the weight room, in our freshman and JV programs, investing in our middle school programs. So it's kind of hit or miss this year, in terms of some years hit or miss in terms of how many seniors you have in the lineup. But we have a lot of underclassmen that are contributing, and we play a lot of guys on a Friday night. We rotate guys on just about every position. Offensive line is probably the one where we haven't as much, but in terms of the secondary, our linebacker level, our defensive line, it's almost like a hockey team in terms of line changes. So we're playing a lot of guys and getting them game reps. So moving forward in the future, you can have that ability to rebuild or to
Go
reload.
ahead, Dave.
And talk about your defense, or who are some of the players that, in the first 4 weeks have stood out for you?
I mean, when you play good defense, it takes 11. It really does. If you have a weak link, it can be exposed there. Two of the guys that have jumped out in terms of tackle totals are Justin Peluso has done a really good job. It's a shame he suffered a knee injury the other night. He's a Lafayette College commit and our leading tackler and just an overall really, really good football player. So that's going to be a huge loss for us. But he's really stood out there. And then another guy in terms of tackle totals has been our free safety Aaron Beat, who
Hmm.
is getting a lot more attention on the offensive side this year, but he's really a heck of a football player in the secondary. So if I had to pick out two that um, are standing out in terms of statistics, it's those two. But as I mentioned, our defensive line, we have the luxury of rotating 6, 7 guys there, and they're doing an outstanding job. It allows us to keep them fresh on the offensive side. So, their numbers might not be jumping off the page in terms of the stats, but just doing a really good job in terms of the way they're playing football.
Coach, we
Absolutely.
were talking, a little bit beforehand. You've mentioned that, you've been a head coach for, a good bit. Um, what are some of the things that kind of stand out to you that you've seen, changes in high school football from the time you started coaching until this season?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was a long time ago, but
Well, it was, we know it was beyond leather helmets, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, I look back, we laugh at some of the ways we operated. I started in 2005, and back then we were driving to do video exchanges with VHS tapes, and my wife still busts my chops, and everyone tells everyone else, he had me running to Wind Gap to drop off films with this coach and that coach. So I think that is
That's
one of
funny.
the things that jumps out. Um, in terms of the speed of the game, the spread offense, the RPO stuff, the recruiting process, it's all been evolving. But kids are still kids. They still play hard. They still love to play high school football. It's still a huge experience for them at Freedom and in the Lehigh Valley. So a lot of things have changed, but some things are still the same.
And this week you have Allen. It's your homecoming. Talk about your community and how it all comes together.
Yeah, it's a celebration. It's going to be a celebration. We have our first pep rally of the year. That the kids are prepping their homecoming court skits, and it's a fun time. And we want the kids to enjoy the high school experience. It's not just about playing football. So for our band and, as I mentioned, our cheerleaders and our student body, it's going to be a fun week, and you always want to win on homecoming. Obviously helps the mood of the weekend. So we're looking forward to it. We're trying to use the enthusiasm we have from a 4-0 start and use that at practice and the good vibes in the building, and just try to keep building every day.
Well, I tell you what, Coach, listen, thank you very much for some time on a very busy week. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and best of luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me,
All
guys.
right, thanks a
Yeah,
lot. Just go
thank you,
ahead and
Coach.
just go ahead and exit out then. Thanks a lot.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
All
Wow, just
right.
great stuff, man. And yeah, I'm gonna bring our buddy Justin in, who just joined us here, Dave. So we have the
Okay.
opportunity to talk about then all of the games. And Justin Biter, one of our guys who covers games here for.
Yeah, he covers District 2 and District 4 for us on Eastern PA. Definitely check him out. Great articles he writes.
Yeah, he sure does. I mean, terrific guy, very knowledgeable, and looking forward to him, joining the program here. Hopefully, he can get his video and audio going. Justin, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can
We
hear
can
you. We
hear
can't
you.
see you. Can you click your video button there?
Yeah, I'm doing that. It says I'm on.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you're on. I don't. We don't. Unfortunately, we
Well,
don't
we
see.
could hear you at
Yeah,
least.
we can hear you.
So we could do that.
That sounds
So
good.
great matchup always. Mount Carmel Southern. I think they split the last 4 games. Um, I don't think anyone would have predicted that score 7-6.
Yeah, a real defensive struggle right from the outset. And like you said, Dave, it wasn't anything that probably anybody had on their bingo card.
Hmm.
Mount Carmel stopped Southern inside the 10-yard line 3 times. Um,
Wow.
a little bit of chaos in the fourth quarter. Southern Columbia lined up for a go-ahead field goal with about 10 minutes left. And the kicker, Preston Shadle, was called for a mouthpiece violation.
Oh wow.
So he was
Wow.
forced to leave the field. There was some confusion because Southern Columbia ran the quarterback, Hockenbrock, back on the field. Well, here he was going to attempt the field goal. So Mount
Mm,
Carmel called timeout. Hockenbrock attempted the field goal from 24 yards and missed it wide left. So obviously a big moment in the game there. But, it's not
wow.
many times you hear about Southern Columbia being stopped on a quarterback sneak on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Mount Carmel's defense, which had a little bit of a rough time, as you know, against North Schuylkill, 37 points. Mifflinburg, I believe, was 34 points. And even Central Columbia ran the ball with some success on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was surprising, but obviously a big win for the Red Tornadoes. I'll tell you what, Dave, they play Montoursville Friday night, and that will not be a pushover.
Yeah, I think that is going to be an interesting matchup, and maybe you could, give us a little thought on that matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure can. Montoursville's a team that, I had them against Danville 2 weeks ago, and they played them tough. I think it was 23-20 going to the fourth
Mhm.
quarter. It was 30-20. They had a long touchdown callback that could have made it 30-27 with about 7 minutes left. So Montoursville, Jimmy Messina throws the ball enough to scare you. And the running backs, Hayden Harvey had 84 yards against Danville. Christian Banks scored on a long run against Danville. So, Mount Carmel better be careful because Montoursville is just balanced enough where they can scare you.
Now, Messina, is that Mike's son or is
Nephew.
he related to
Nephew.
nephew? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
nephew.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And I'll tell you what, let me just go ahead and bring in, all of our, games here that, we're interested in looking at. And
And Justin, you want to tell us what game you'll be at this week then?
And I'll be at Mount Carmel, Montoursville Friday night. Looking
Okay.
forward to it. Yeah.
wow. Some of the games here, obviously now you can see on your screen, the Mount Carmel Southern Columbia game that you were at. Anything you want to add on the Williams Valley Minersville game?
Don't know much about District 11. Just I know Williams Valley was highly regarded as was Minersville, but don't have much to add other than I know that Williams Valley had a narrow escape against Nativity the week before.
Yeah, in that game, all-state candidate Minersville quarterback had a huge game. Dante Carr had, I think, over 130 yards rushing to go with his 215 yards passing. But the story of the game was Fletcher Thomas from Williams Valley had over 200 yards, led his team in a wild game, 42-36. Williams Valley had a big second quarter, 28 points they scored. They were leading 35-21 at halftime. And then Minersville, they scored 15 points in the end to get the game close, but Williams Valley pulled that one out.
Yeah, very interesting. And what are any other games of note in week 4, Justin, from your area that you might be able to shed some light on that aren't really on our recap list here?
Yeah, Warrior Run pulled away from Bloomsburg late, and now they're 4-0, and they play a 4-0 Lewisburg team on Friday. So that's a team that maybe you want to keep an eye on. They can score some points. They scored 38 on Bloomsburg, but again, that was a tight game until late. I think it was 31-24. Warrior Run hit a bomb late in the game to kind of put it away, but that's a sneaky good game Friday night with Warrior Run and Lewisburg.
Wow, that one got past me a little bit. Any others that
And
the fans should be taking notice of?
well, how about Jersey Shore, losing to
Yeah, right.
Shamokin? That was big news statewide.
And I'll tell you what, guys, the Coal Bucket game week 10 will have a lot of juice this year for the first time in probably about at least 10 years.
And so tell everybody from around the state about the coal bucket game.
Yeah, the Coal Bucket game, Mount Carmel, Shamokin. Mount Carmel's won the bucket every year since 1995.
Crazy.
I had the game in 2014 where Shamokin scored to lead in overtime, and the Shamokin students were ready to rush the field. Mount Carmel had a 4th and 12 in overtime, down by 6, and they scored. Kicked the
Wow.
extra point, and it was an incredible scene. There were Shamokin kids laying all over the field and being consoled by students in Mount Carmel. It was just a surreal scene that night, that weekend.
Wow.
Any other games that we need to take note of? Results from last week that you had your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that Troy certainly beat Athens, but I think the easiness at which it happened surprised me.
Mhm.
I think it was 34-0 after the first quarter, something like that. So Troy is probably a team that, honestly, with the way Southern's kind of up and down right now, will be very, very much in the mix to get the #1 seed and host the D4 2A playoffs.
Yeah, and a team I think some people think that might dethrone Southern. We'll see. You can never count out Southern though.
Never count out Jim Roth. But you're right, Dave. Certainly, if this is the year somebody's going to do it, it's going to be this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I did see Southern Columbia play down here at Wyomissing, and
Yeah.
it was really sometimes tough to watch.
Yeah, I
And
was there as well. It was a rough start with the whole punt snaps and fumbling the snap of the first snap of the game. They really, really never got their feet under them until it was 21-0.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you never got, and quite honestly, you never got the impression that they ever really got into any kind of rhythm, as a team, offensively or defensively.
And I was surprised getting back to the Mount Carmel game because they had scored 96 points on Milton and Loyalsock the 2 weeks before. So you figure maybe they got it
Yeah.
fixed, but they sputtered with, again, some inconsistent passing. The running game was, other than one big play, was just okay. But you're right. Week 1 and week 4, their offense has not been great.
So what are some of the trends that as we go on through the season that, up there in District 4 that you're going to be paying attention to?
Well, certainly, I think District 4, 3A. I mean, we know Danville, what they have offensively. Montoursville was able to push them around in the first half, and then Danville got the ship righted at halftime. But keep an eye on Danville's next 2 games after Friday because they're Southern Columbia and they're Mount Carmel. So we may get a read on Danville as far as how good they are. And keep an eye on that Lewisburg Warrior run game because you're looking at probably in some order, the top 4 seeds in 3A are going to be Danville, Lewisburg, Montoursville, and Mount Carmel. So that could be a very interesting tournament come weeks 12 and 13.
Wow. Very,
Good
very
stuff.
interesting. I mean, yeah, good stuff. I mean, that's why Eastern PA football has their guys, embedded all over the state. So Justin, I'll tell you what, we're going to check back with you, as the season progresses here. And we're going to do that really all around the eastern part of the state. Try and have some of our reporters on to give us the real down and dirty on a lot of these
Absolutely.
races for the playoffs. So Justin, thanks a lot, my man. It was
Thank you,
great.
Justin.
Yeah,
Appreciate
for
it.
all your insight, and we'll definitely be in touch as the year progresses, my friend.
Look forward to it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
just go ahead and
Justin.
exit
Yep.
out.
Yep. All right. Good
All
stuff.
right, good stuff. Absolutely right. So
So
yeah,
you
no,
want to talk about some of the other games there you had on your list, or
absolutely.
yeah.
You should be able to see that, Dave, right?
Yeah. So, we didn't talk about Strathaven. 35-0 shutout win. Listen, I don't think there's a better running back duo than what Strathaven has with Shane Green and James Fisher. Green had, I think, almost 100 yards rushing. Fisher had 85 yards leading their rushing attack. They have a tough, when teams play them, if you stop one, the other is going to have a big game. But those two combined, they're really tough to beat.
Yeah, and I think coupled in with that defensive effort by Strathaven, I think they held them to Radnor to less than 100 yards total offense. So that really makes for a tough sledding when you're playing Strathaven.
Now, here's a game that you might know a little better is you see Manheim Township a little
Yeah.
more. A close win against Plymouth White Marsh. What was your thoughts on that one?
Well, look, last seconds field goal. Um, you know, I think that's very impressive for a team like Manheim Township to be tested on the road, hostile environment. Coach Evans and how he's reloaded this team from, he had a lot of really fine players that moved on to the next level, and he's literally just reloaded. But you can't argue the fact that, how important special teams are, not only in
Hmm.
individual games, but throughout an entire season. And to gain that level of confidence, with a last second field goal win, I think is invaluable. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. It is very, very valuable, and it's a good win by Manheim Township.
Yeah, and we touched on a little bit that Freedom Nazareth game, Dave. Any
Yep.
further insight on that?
No, just again, going into the season, it was Freedom Parkland Nazareth. Nazareth Parkland lost a lot from their teams. Freedom had a lot coming back, and they're showing why they're the best team in the Lehigh Valley. And
Sure.
and yes, these wins are nice in the regular season, but in the end, it's about winning districts.
Yeah, absolutely right. Obviously, we had the lowdown on Mount Carmel, Southern Columbia,
Yep.
Williams Valley, Minersville. I got a feeling that both of these teams are going to be, playing into November. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think both teams will be playing. We talked a little bit about it. Minersville again has all-state candidate quarterback Dante Carr, and Williams Valley. They could run the ball. Fletcher Thomas, huge game, over 200 yards. Um, yeah, those two programs I think are going to make some noise in districts.
CB South wins 34-15 over CB East. They're actually in a position to win, and I didn't know this even existed, the CB Cup.
Yeah, the
And we'll
CB
talk
Cup.
a little bit about that, in the preview games there. But CB South just continuing to move on, and then wow, what can you say about West Perry, um, and their defeat of Susquehanna Township? Just a tremendous effort. It was only 10-7 at half, but
Yeah.
actually what kind of uh, uh, vaulted West Perry to the win was a fake punt for a touchdown. I think it was like
Ah,
80 yards,
jeez.
and Susquehanna Township never recovered from that.
Yeah, and their running back, Brad Hockenberry, 166 yards rushing. Their kicker, Evan Keaton, had a 40-yard field goal. So they kind of did it, on all three phases of the game.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way. All right. Well,
In North Penn,
yeah, how
one
about
more.
North Penn over in Neshaminy there? Um, they really showed their mettle there. I think they were up 31-0 at half and just kind of coasted.
Yeah, and three stars, Joshua Coleman, 137 yards rushing. Their quarterback, Matt Bucks there, I think is the way you say it, had 150 yards passing. And their kicker, I mean, they just seem to be kicker you. Ryan Bachlet, 49-yard field goal, and we'll kind of, go into the top performer list, and you'll see his name a few times on there.
Yeah, absolutely right. And speaking of top performers, great segue in there. Top performers related to passing and rushing.
Yeah,
Quite honestly, I actually saw Gabe Johnson's performance last week. The guy was incredible for Northern.
344 yards.
Yeah, and I mean these were that was tough sledding. Um,
I mean, you look at the passing, obviously, Notre Dame's quarterback, first varsity start, throws for 604 yards. Roman Catholic's quarterback, second highest with 465 yards. Um, Boy, they're a team that's going to make a lot of noise in 5A. And, there's the top five. But look at Russian. Three of the top five uh, best games so far are from Columbia Montorvo Tech.
yeah,
Braxton Brown has the top 401 yards and the fourth, fifth most rushing yards in a game. Incredible.
it is incredible. And on the receiving side, yeah, just 272 yards there for Matty Bulmer.
Yeah.
But Max Hefner for Daniel Boone, that was in a losing effort, the 257 yards there. But let's not forget like the defensive thing there, and we put up the interception return for
Yeah.
touchdowns, and Dontavius Lockett 100 yards
Yep.
interception return. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, um, you see it. I mean, 85, 81, 71. Wilson's quarterback, 67-yard
Interception
interception
return
return.
touchdown.
So I
Payback
mean, these
time.
guys are finding ways to score many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we, touched on field goals. Whoops, touched on field goals there, and touched being the appropriate word. I'm not entirely sure I can get that back, but um, a lot of really great guys there for the field goal. So let's segue into our power rankings, and we're going to start with 1A and 2A, and I'll do Bob's first. Our buddy Bob Long,
Yeah.
who's a contributor here for us on the program. Um, he's got Troy, Williams Valley, Riverside. He does have Mount Carmel in there,
Yeah.
and Minersville. So, a couple teams with a loss, but obviously they're playing good football.
Well, we'll have to tell them to adjust that. I just saw that because Mount Carmel's actually 3A this
Oh,
year.
okay.
So we'll have to adjust that.
Adjust that. Okay.
Looking at his other four, yeah, I mean, we all have Troy number one, and then from there, it kind of, for the most, we have majority of the same teams. And, I have Southern Columbia still in my top five. And, my theory is always until they get beat, and I'm talking districts, I think they've earned that right. But we'll see in the next couple weeks how they do with their schedule if they continue to be in my top five.
And I've got Camp Hill in there.
Yeah.
I mean, my District 3, but there's a team that, went deep in the playoffs last year and is playing very well again this season. So mine are Troy, Williams Valley, Riverside, Camp Hill, and Minersville. Everybody has Minersville number 5. So I think that's
Yeah.
the only Troy 1, Minersville 5, and then everything else is kind of a reshuffled deck.
And I have Camp Hill in my top 10. A team that isn't in my top five, but to keep an eye on is Willem Penn Charter out of the
Yep.
Interact.
Mm-hmm.
3-0, but really just destroying teams right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the 3A, 4A. You and Bob like Bonner Prendy. And that, I mean, they did make my top 5, but you guys like them a lot.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of talent. They went kind of deep in the playoffs, I think losing to Dallas up in District 2 last year. They have some talent. Listen, all those five teams, I think, deserve to be in the top five. All have tremendous talent. I have Bonner, Danville, Pope John Paul II. I know they had a little hiccup last weekend, but tremendous team. Twin Valley, who I really like. I think that's a team that um, could make some noise this year, especially in district. Northwestern Lehigh, they just dismantled a undefeated Blue Mountain team.
Yeah.
And, it just seems like they're focused on, reaching their goals, which is each week being 1-0, but what their ultimate goal is to get back to Cumberland Valley and maybe this time finish it.
Yeah, I think, and the same thing here, 3A and 4A. It seems like we have the usual suspects between us all. just reshuffled there. But
Yeah.
between Twin Valley, between Danville, Bob doesn't have Danville in there, but you and I both like him. I obviously like him a lot.
Yeah. And they're
And
a
that,
tremendous program.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
why I'm missing, I have six. So they're just right outside my top five.
Yeah, I mean they lost to an Interact school, and that, so it doesn't really affect,
Who's actually in my top 10
yeah,
for,
exactly.
yeah. So,
Exactly. So in 5 and 6A, Bob, clearly he's showing his colors of, being kind of a District 12, District 1 guy. And but none of these teams here, nobody's arguing. I think the fact that these are all top flight teams, and he's got Prep and LaSalle College, Roman, who boy is just going to be a tough out for 5A for anybody. They've got a path. They're out from underneath, the Imhotep situation, Imhotep being up in 6A this year,
yeah.
and that Bob likes Malvern a lot. Um,
And listen, Malvern has two tough losses.
yeah, two tough
Um,
losses.
you know what? They're just right outside my top 10. They are probably a top 10 team. They played some tremendous teams, but you're right. The big three of St. Joe's Prep, LaSalle, Emotep, and 6A, well, unless barring a major upset, you're going to have LaSalle Prep in the Catholic League final for most likely the rights to play Emotep. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come down to, will one of those teams beat two of the others? And I know I keep saying that, but that's what it's looking. And with it, like you said, with Emotep moving up to 6A, that really opens the door for Roman Catholic. And a lot of people I know statewide really like Roman Catholic's chances to get to Cumberland Valley. But again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But um, I'm just saying what people are saying.
Yeah, right, correct. I mean, we're the pulse of Eastern PA football here, and really the schedule down in Philadelphia doesn't really get cranking until October. I mean,
Yeah.
it really doesn't when the Philadelphia Catholic League starts playing one another there. And so I'll talk a little bit about your rankings, and then I'll talk about mine.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Prep, LaSalle, MLTAP. I think I flip-flopped LaSalle and MLTEP.
Hmm.
MLTEP lost to a nationally ranked team. I could have kept them probably the same, but LaSalle's is playing such great ball. And, I think Roman is right where they are in District 12. Could they beat one of the three? Maybe. I don't remember if they're playing any of those three, but CB South, a team that made it all the way to the East Final, losing to St. Joe's Prep. They still have a great program, and I think that they're going to be in the mix when it's all said and done for that District 1 title.
Well, mine, I kind of I put my power rankings put together kind of like based on each particular district, who I thought, with one wild card, who I thought the best 5A, 6A team was in each particular district. And knowing full well that, the really uh, heavyweights were in the Philadelphia Catholic League. That's why I Prep and LaSalle, or actually coming out of District 12. But I think CB South, the best 5A, 6A power ranked school coming out of District 1. Nobody's talking about CD East. Out
Yeah.
of District 3, they're undefeated. They're leading the Commonwealth in the Mid Penn Conference. Quite honestly, they've got a very favorable schedule up until the last 2 weeks of the season. They play McDevitt and then Harrisburg the last 2 weeks of the season. But up until that point, I expect them to be 8-0 going into the final 2 weeks of the season. Them, I think that quite honestly, they're my number one power ranked team here in District 3, and then Freedom in District 11.
Yeah.
Kind of a taste of all of the districts, and then basically ranking them by who I think the best is from 1 to 5. So that's how I approached the power
Hmm.
rankings there, maybe a little bit differently than what you and Bob did, but I think that the power rankings get a lot of discussion going. They really mean nothing. I mean, I mean, in the
That's
scheme of
true.
things, right? I mean, it's just a beauty contest, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it means something, but it doesn't right now. The goal is to get into districts, and then from there, win districts, get into states, because the ultimate goal for every team before the season starts, everyone's even. Oh,
Hmm.
no. The
Yep.
ultimate goal is to get to Cumberland Valley. And, there's only going to be 12 teams there. So
Yep.
which 12 teams statewide are going to be there?
Yeah, right. And that's why I like my power rankings. Why I try to put the teams. Quite honestly, it's a shame that in all look, it's a shame that with all of these classifications that there aren't some, like in other sports, they take 2 and 3 teams from districts for basketball, by class or whatever like that. I don't think that it's any big deal. And there's enough time. I mean, we have a week 0. You can't add one more week to the state playoffs and fill up some of these buys so that you can't get some wild card teams into the tournament. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I think that they really need to do that, especially with District 1. In my guy, you have 32 teams. There between 5 and 6A, and it would be nice to get maybe 2 teams in that, but I digress. So moving on, our games of note in week 5,
Yeah.
and right on the top, Schuylkill Haven and Minersville. I tell you what, these 2 teams don't like each other to begin with, and with so much on the line, that's going to be a real battle. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, looking at Schuylkill Haven, you know, they have 3 runners that have combined for 1,500 yards rushing, 23 touchdowns. Um, they're going to run the ball, they're going to control the ball, but um, ever since week 1, when they lost 19-14, they've won 57 nothing, 77 nothing, and 59-8. They've I think made the adjustments, and they're just going to pound the ball, control that clock, wear the team down. That's what North Schuylkill does. I
Yeah,
mean,
and they lost.
Schuylkill Haven does.
They lost to Blue Mountain, who's a 4A team. I think Schuylkill Haven
Yes,
is what, 2A or
yes,
1A?
2A, I think.
2A.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Coach Farr really has those guys humming.
Yeah,
Eh,
absolutely. And again, Minersville coming off the loss to Wilms Valley. Um, Dante Carr, he's the guy that's, if they're gonna win, he's gonna lead them. I think this game potentially early and often could be a shootout. It could be back and forth. Schuylkill Haven's running attack versus Minersville passing attack. It's gonna
yeah,
be
it's
fun.
really who's going to impose their will. I think it's a classic example.
And I think this might be a Thursday night game, if I remember
Yeah, I
correctly.
think so too. I do. I believe so. Um, but a big game out of District 1, Strathaven at Garnet Valley, both teams undefeated. I mean, a real Central League showdown.
Yeah, Joe is, I think, covering this game for us. Again, Strathaven combined rushing almost 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. We touched on, Shane Green, James Fisher, you know, arguably the best District 1 dual running backs out there. And then Garnet Valley, they're led by their quarterback, Luke Donegal, 679 yards passing, 8 touchdowns. Their running back, Luke Vaughn, he'll get some touches, but their main receivers, Caden Collar, 15 catches, over 400 yards, receiving 5 touchdowns. Every catches, he's scoring a touchdown. So this one's going to be an exciting game. And again, this is kind of a little classic, maybe passing versus running,
Yeah.
team. But this one's going to be a great one.
And a couple teams kind of flying under the radar. Tamaqua at Salisbury. Tamaqua undefeated. Salisbury's only loss, I think, is to Notre Dame Green Pond. Nothing, it can't be too disappointed about that. Green Pond just playing outstanding football. These two teams are going to lock horns. And like I said, Tamaqua trying to, get back into the fray there in District 11.
Yeah, I mean, 4-0. Last week they beat Jim Thorpe 48-7. Luke Kane, their quarterback, almost 500 yards passing. He's at 250 yards rushing, so he could kind of beat you throwing or running. Their running back, Bradley Whalen, almost 450 yards rushing. And, their top receiver, Victor Schlosser, 17 catches that this kid's had, 3 touchdowns. He's such a, valuable weapon for, that program. But yeah, I mean, Tamaqua 4-0, off to a great start, and they'll see if they can make it 5-0 this week.
Yeah, a lot of great football being played, around District 11. We touched on the Mount Carmel, Montoursville there
Yeah.
with our buddy Justin, but I mean
Yeah.
a huge game up in District 2. Scranton Prep at Scranton. It's kind of rare that you see a 3A team playing a 6A team, but it's just a rivalry that is just it transcends classification football.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Scranton, they played both Pocono Mountain schools, won pretty handily. Um, they beat Wyoming Valley West and then West Scranton last week, shut them out. Their quarterback, um, Brody Coyle, is, he can run the ball, he can pass the ball. Reese Whitman is their leading receiver, 6 catches. It's a team that I think could run, pass. They could do a lot of different things. And their defense, I think that the last probably 2 games, they've only given up 6 points the
Yeah.
last 2 games. So their defense is getting better. And Scranton Prep, I mean, they played um,
Well,
a
their only
tough
loss is to
schedule.
Canisius, who's kind of like one of those traveling teams that will go all around the country. So, no harm in that. But boy, I tell
No,
you what,
no. And listen, tough game with Del Val, a 5A school. They pulled out that one 28-25. But Lewis Paris, their quarterback, he's a guy that, he's over 300 yards rushing, almost 500 yards passing. A guy that he could run it, he could throw it. Their wide receiver, Brady Holmes, he's got 6 touchdown receptions this year. And their running back, Will Mick Portland, almost 400 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns. So they have a lot of weapons. This one's going to be a fun game. I think this is one that could be back and forth. And I know Scranton, playing a lot of the Pocono schools, West Scranton, Wyoming Valley West. This is probably their biggest test to date. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this weekend.
Well, and this round robin tournament for the CB Cup, if CB South beats West, they win, the CB Cup. And I was trying to look to see when the last time CB South won it. And the best I could come up with is within recent memory. So not really a date. So it's been a little bit, but CB South really wanting this one over CB West. What do you think?
Yeah, and you know what? You have to favor CB South in this game. Owen Pinkerton, 450 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, over 400 yards rushing. Another versatile quarterback that could beat you so many ways. They have 2 receivers that are over, I think, 200 yards receiving. So he has weapons. And then CB West, who wants to run the ball, Ryan Clements is the guy that if they're going to win, he's got to have a big game.
Yeah, absolutely. And one in your backyard, a big one. Liberty at undefeated Liberty at undefeated Dariff. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, Dariff is a great story. 4-0. They beat Pocono Mountain East, Pleasant Valley, Pocono Mountain West, East Stroudsburg North. So pretty much all the northern teams up there. And this is their toughest test. And it's gonna be a challenge because listen, this Liberty team hasn't been this good in a while. And you know what? A tremendous win week 1 against Penridge. They eked out a win against Central Catholic week 2. Um, beat Stroudsburg pretty handily, and then beat Northampton last week 16-7. Their quarterback, Antonio Fontanez, over almost 600 yards passing. He could run the ball. This guy is the former Central Catholic quarterback who went
Mhm.
to a prep school and then came back in the area and went to Liberty. But they have so many weapons, and their receiver, Jake Putson, 19 catches, 2 touchdowns. This guy is a tremendous athlete. I seen him play basketball. He's a tremendous basketball player, a dual sport athlete, a kid that can make plays. They're fun to watch. I've seen some film on them. They could really go up and down the field. I like Liberty in this game and to win big in this one.
Wow, that's a bold statement. Bold, bold, bold. But uh finishing it off here, very interesting matchup between Cedar Crest and Wilson. Everybody's always been looking at Section 1 of the Lancaster Lebanon League as a matchup between Manheim Township and Wilson. But Cedar Crest is crashing the party here. Um, they had a non-league loss to Warwick, but they've looked really awesome. They've got a lot of seniors, first year head coach, but I did their game last week against Penn Manor. Jackson
Mhm.
Custer, their quarterback, is a real deal. He is
Mhm.
a very good dual threat quarterback, good running back, tandem. One of the guys, Isaiah Zimmerman, I was very impressed with for Cedar Crest. They play really tough defense. They're strong, on both the offensive and defensive line. I think, and they're at Wilson, Maddox Gruber, the quarterback there. I think that Cedar Crest is going to keep him hopping. I think that that's a very, very interesting game, and one that I think is going to go a long way in determining A, who's going to be the Lancaster Lebanon League Section 1 champs, but B, the pecking order of District 3 6A, I think, is on the line with this one too. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they both had a hiccup week 3. Like you said, Cedar Crest lost to Warwick. Wilson narrowly lost to Nazareth. I got to see them play against Nazareth. Very impressive. Their quarterback, very impressive, makes great decisions, plays good defense. Maddox Gruber, he's a guy that if he's going, he's amazing with the ball. I said on the sideline, he was like a wizard. He would fake right, go left. He really had the defense kind of guessing, and he's fun to watch, and he's a guy that single-handedly can win a game. But I think this one's going to be a good matchup. And you're right. I mean, we're almost at halfway through the regular season. So, in another week or so, we might be starting to look at the
The power
this
rankings.
the power rankings and see
Yeah.
where teams are. So, at this point in time when you're starting to play teams like this, especially like if they're in your league or district that means something, each week is starting to get more and more important. And here we are at it's amazing. We're, almost 1/3 of the way of the season being done.
Well, I
It's
mean,
incredible.
we will be halfway through the regular season after this week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I think it's a good point to kind of do a snapshot, next week of the power rankings,
Yeah.
something that the fans can look forward to. We'll do selected ones. We'll do a certain classification from each
Yeah.
particular district, and we'll kind of do that on a rotating basis, throughout the rest of the shows. Like we'll throw 5A and District 1 up there along with 6A and District 3 and 4A and District 4 and we'll throw it on up there and show everybody how people are trending and how that all relates to the games of the week and everything like that. I mean, why not?
Yeah. No, I agree. Probably, if they're out there, I'll have a page on my website that will have each district. Um, just click on it and you'll be able to see. We tonight first time showed our top performers list. If you want to see the complete list each week, you could go on the main page, and each week there's a list of all
Yeah,
the top
updated.
performers.
Yeah.
We have a lot of talent all over Eastern PA, and these kids are showing why, that they're so talented.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been a lot of fun, this week. I mean, we plowed through not only, two interviews, but, obviously all the games and power rankings and top performers. I mean, just jam packed, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to, add a little more to the show, and we're gonna have a different reporter on next week, a different coach. Maybe when it gets closer, we'll have, a couple reporters on.
Sure.
I like the idea when Justin was kind of breaking down District 4 in some of the key games, and I think that's a good idea that we'll get some of the guys that are covering certain districts to come on and not only talk about maybe an important game, but talk about, what's trending in that district. And so we're going to have a lot of good information. And listen, we're going to get you ready for playoff football, which is, I know I'm saying it now, week 5, but it's not too far away.
Well, and also too, getting the rest of the fans in the state kind of, in tune with kind of a, truncated way to keep their eye on certain teams and how they're trending, because ultimately we all meet in the middle, right? In at Cumberland
Hmm.
Valley. And it's all about, and especially with the lower classifications when there's a lot more movement, east and west through the brackets, earlier on in the playoff process, right?
Yeah, I mean, like single A, it's kind of true East versus West, where, 6A, you have, I think, District 3
Yeah.
going through the West, where you could technically have an all East final. I know like in football, you can't do a bracket where it's not by district. It's just too much travel. And then, maybe some districts might dominate certain classifications. So, I think the PIAA does a good job with it, but it can be tweaked. Like, for instance, and I think it's sometimes more in the West where you get some districts classifications where they have a buy or two.
Yeah.
They need to figure that out, that there's no
They
buys
got to
for
play
anyone. Everyone has to play the
the same
same
amount of games.
amount.
Everybody's got to play the same
Absolutely.
amount of games to reach the championship. And if
Yeah.
that means that you've got to create, you got to put wild card teams in, then so be it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to imagine that. And we're talking about the WPIAL. Okay, what do they got? They got 9 6A teams. Okay, you got 32 in District 1. Yet, and each district gets one team into the tournament. What's fair is fair, and in for District 1, when you have 32 teams, in there for the 6A and 1A classification, they should at least get a runner up or some kind of bye figured in there, and have them play so that the team like Cathedral Prep. I mean, it's not only the fact that they have a bye, but then they have a walkover because the team that they're supposed to play decides not to play. Well, that's
Yeah.
not fair.
Yeah. And it's no fault to their program or programs like
No.
that that get a buy. It's just the way the system is right now. And it could be tweaked. Listen, I think they're doing a tremendous job. They
Yeah.
have a good bracket system. It's just a few things that I think we could tweak, maybe move a couple teams in those areas, and then let everyone play the same amount of games. If you're going to get to Cumberland Valley, and if it's 5 wins to get there, then you need to play
Everybody's
five
got to
games.
win the same amount of games to get there. And that's what's just not happening
Yeah.
in the Western bracket. It's just not. I mean, so,
Yeah.
but anyway, all right, we
Well,
digress, but
listen,
we'll be back next week, right?
yeah, great show, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And again, we're gonna get you ready as the weeks go and get you ready for the playoffs because it's gonna be a fun ride. Before you know it, we'll be on the sidelines doing our little sideline halftime recaps, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yes, it will be. And it's a shame that we're looking so far ahead, but
Yeah,
that it is what it is. All right. Well, listen, for my buddy Dave, Mika, Bruce Badgley, and also our contributor Bob Long, thank you so much for watching. And tell your friends about us. We're on demand on YouTube, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday, 7:30, right here on Fresh Set of Downs. Thanks so much. See you next week. Drive safely.